Unto Jesus be all glory, power, and praise. Majesty, kingdom, authority flows from his throne unto his home, his anthem.
To Music and Scripture. Usually it's with Jerome and Sylvia, but this week it's with St. John's United Methodist Church in Ludov and Windsor United Methodist Church in Columbia. We're coming to you today from the Windsor Sanctuary. I'm Jerome Ogburn from St. John's United Methodist Church. I'm the music director there. And at the keyboard is...
I'm Rodney Mills from Windsor United Methodist. Keyboard, organ, piano.
Rodney and I had the privilege to work together a few years back, and we took the opportunity this week to get together and do something once again for both of our congregations. We're really glad that you're tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this time as we share some scripture and share some songs. Rodney played the prelude, beautiful rendition of, what was it?
That was Into My Heart. It's in one of the songs in our Faith We Sing books.
So we'll have to look at the lyrics of that and pull that out sometime over at our congregation as well. We're going to share some scripture from the lectionary and some that's not from the lectionary this week. This week there were actually 3 passages possible, selections to be used from the psalm. We're going to start out with Psalm 65, verses 1 through 13. Praise waiteth for thee, O God, in Zion, and unto thee shall the vow be performed. O thou who hearest prayer, unto thee shall all flesh come. Iniquities prevail against thee, as for our transgressions thou shalt purge them away. Blessed is the man whom thou choosest, and causest to approach unto thee, that he may dwell in thy courts. We shall be satisfied with the goodness of thy house, even of thy holy temple. By awesome things in righteousness wilt thou answer us, O God, of our salvation, who art the confidence of all the ends of the earth, and those who are far off upon the sea, who by his strength setteth fast the mountains, being girded with power, who stilleth the noise of the seas, the noise of their waves, and the tumult of the people. They also that dwell in the uttermost parts are afraid at thy signs. Thou makest the outgoings of the morning and evening to rejoice. Thou visitest the earth and watereth it. Thou greatly enrichest it with the river of God, which is full of water. Thou preparest them grain when thou hast provided for it. Thou waterest the ridges thereof abundantly. Thou settlest the furrows thereof. Thou makest it soft with showers. Thou blessest the springing thereof. Thou crownest the year with thy goodness, and thy paths drop fatness. They drop upon the pastures of the wilderness, and the little hills rejoice on every side. The pastures are clothed with flock. The valleys also are covered over with grain. They shout for the joy. They also sing. We're going to start our time out today with just that, singing, shout to the Lord. My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. My comfort, my shelter, tower of refuge and strength, let every breath, all that I am, never cease to worship you. Oh, shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I love you, forever I'll stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have in you. Shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I love you, forever I'll stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have. Lord, nothing compares to the promise I have. Lord, nothing compares to the promise I have in you. Rodney and I are truly fortunate to be able to be sitting here in a place that has been dedicated to the worship of God. It is, in effect, hallowed ground. And although you may not be right here with us, wherever you are is holy because of the presence of the Lord. In fact, in the first verse of this next song, we have those words. For the Lord is present, and where he is holy. This is holy ground. This is holy ground. We're standing on holy ground. For the Lord is present, and where he is holy. Never forget that wherever we are, when we call upon his name, he comes. And where he's present, the ground is holy. The next scripture I'm going to share with you is from the book of Matthew. It's the gospel reading for this week. Actually, what I'm going to read is not really the gospel reading for this week. The gospel reading starts in Matthew 13, verse 1, and goes through verse 9. And then it skips to verse 18 and picks up the next parable. Jesus is telling parables to the people. And the disciples, of course, are there. And they ask him why he tells stories. And he kind of tweaks them a little bit, because he starts out in this passage telling them how fortunate they are to be able to hear with ears that are open and see with eyes that are open, and that they can understand. But obviously they don't understand, because he takes the time to explain the story to them. So we're going to pick it up in chapter 13, beginning with verse 10. Let's see if I can find where that starts. The disciples came up and asked, I'm reading this from the Message, so it's a paraphrase, it's a little bit different. The disciples came up and asked, "Why do you tell stories?" He replied, "You've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works. Not everybody has this gift, this insight. It hasn't been given to them. Whenever someone has a ready heart for this, the insights and understandings flow freely. But if there is no readiness, any trace of receptivity soon disappears. That's why I tell stories, to create readiness, to nudge the people toward receptive insight. In their present state, they can stare till doomsday and not see it. Listen till they're blue in the face and not get it. I don't want Isaiah's forecast repeated all over again. Your ears are open, but you don't hear a thing. Your eyes are awake, but you don't see a thing. The people are blockheads. They stick their fingers in their ears so they won't have to listen. They screw their eyes shut so they won't have to look, so they won't have to deal with me face to face and let me heal them. But you have God-blessed eyes, eyes that see, and God-blessed ears, ears that hear. A lot of people, prophets, and humble believers among them would have given anything to see what you are seeing, to hear what you are hearing, but never had the chance. God opens our eyes that we might see. He opens our ears for us to hear. And then he opens those lips we sang about just a while ago. He opens our mouth so that we might share that good news that we have seen and heard with a world who needs to know who Jesus is. Open my eyes that I may see. Glimpses of truth thou hast taught me, placing my hands the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee, ready my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes and illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my ears that I may hear voices of truth thou sendest clear, and while the rainbows fall on my ear, everything false will disappear. Silently now I wait for thee, ready my God, thy will to see. Open my ears and illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my mouth and let me bear gladly the word true everywhere. Open my heart and let me prepare love for thy children thus to share. Silently now I wait for thee, ready my God, thy will to see. Open my heart, illumine me, Spirit divine. That's our prayer today, that God might open our eyes, that we might see and understand, and be ready to share that love with others. Open our eyes, Lord, we want to see Jesus, to reach out and touch Him, and say that we love The other reading from the Psalms is, make sure I get the passage right. It's Psalm 119, verses 105 to 112. And it's really fairly familiar. When I first start reading it, you'll recognize the theme, where you know it from, and the first song we're going to sing in this next set. Let's see, that was 119, beginning with verse 105. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. I have sworn, and I will perform it, that I will keep thy righteous ordinances. I am afflicted very much. Revive me, O Lord, according unto thy word. Accept, I beseech thee, the freewill offerings of my mouth, O Lord, and teach me thine ordinances. My soul is continually in my hand, yet do I not forget thy law. The wicked have laid a snare for me, yet I erred not from thy precepts. Thy testimonies have I taken as an heritage forever, for they are the rejoicing of my heart. I have inclined mine heart to perform thy statutes always, even unto the end. God hasn't just called us to follow him. He equips us as well. He's given his word, these Psalms, which are instructive but also encouraging. He's given the law so that we might try to understand how it is we're supposed to behave. He's given us the gospel that gives us the confidence to know that the price has been paid and that we can reach out and make a difference in the lives of others if we follow his teaching and follow his command. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. When I feel afraid, think I lost my way, stand there and beside me. Nothing will I fear as long as you are near. Please be with me to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Now I will not forget your love for me, and yet my forever is Rodney. Jesus be my guide and hold me to your side, and I will love you to the end. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Now that we have God's instruction, we've got his word, we have his spirit, his presence in our lives. All that's left is that we do what he has commanded us to do. And the only way that we can do that is if we trust him to provide the power that we lack ourselves, to provide the insight that we lack ourselves, that we might be able to trust him and obey him and spread that good news around the world. When we walk with the Lord in the light of Trust and obey. The last scripture that I want to share with you, I really don't have to read it, I guess. It's one that we all know. And it kind of brings all of this to a head. In the last scripture, there was a passage in there about the psalmist's enemies trying to trip him up. Well, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious leaders of Jesus' day, did just that. They tried to trip him up. And they came to him and asked him, "Well, Master, what is the greatest commandment?" And he answered them by saying, "To love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength." And then he said, and the second one is like unto it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And they didn't know how to respond to that. And then, just before Jesus ascended into heaven, he gave us the Great Commission to go along with the Great Commandment. Go ye into all the world and share the gospel. Baptize them. Let them know who I am and that I love them. Basically, is what he was saying. The Pharisees and the Sadducees had religion, but they didn't know how to make the main thing the main thing. They didn't really know how to trust and obey. And that's what we have to do. We have to bring all of this back to the very heart of what worship is. We are to live lives of worship and praise. Times are difficult right now. But God's people have lived through difficult times before. And we'll live through this. And we've got to remember every day to keep the main thing the main thing. We've got to come back to that heart of worship. To put aside all those things that distract us, that we think are so important. Yes, it's important that we gather together as believers, but it's more important that we have time with God. We allow Him to fill us and draw us together with one another and together with Him. We've got to get back to the very heart of worship. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring might be open. More important than that, that your holy mouth might be opened as well. That the good news might be spread abroad. That Jesus